The Consumer Bankers Association is pleased to welcome you to today's webinar, The Current State of Online Closings and an Action Plan for Success by Accurate Group. My name is Victoria, and it is my pleasure to facilitate today's event. Thank you for joining. Please note, we are recording and all participant lines are muted. If you have any trouble, please email conferences@consumerbankers.com or send a message in the Q&A box. This presentation will last up to 60 minutes and will include question and answer opportunities at the end. You may submit a question at any time by entering the questions into the Q&A box on the bottom of your screen. As a reminder, the views expressed in this webinar are those of the presenters and do not represent the views of CBA or its members. It is now my pleasure to introduce our speakers. Josh Jaworski, Notary Works Signing Solutions Supervisor at Accurate Group. Steve Bukowski, Chief Operations Officer at Accurate Group. Josh and Steve, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Victoria. I appreciate the introduction. As she mentioned, I am Steve Bukowski. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Accurate Group. We have had the opportunity to proudly participate with the CBA for the last several decades personally, well over a decade with the Accurate Group. We definitely have worked with many of you, and it's great to see quite a few names I recognize joining the participation list. And today we're really going to walk through the remote online notarization process, what the current state is of that process across the country, as well as developing an action plan for success. The Accurate Group has been honored to be able to participate with remote online notarizations as well as mobile notaries for well over the last 4 decades as it relates to remote online notarizations, dating back to when Virginia was really the only state that authorized their notaries to perform electronic remote signings through today, where we have a momentum building where this is really becoming a national potential offering. That's still part of an overall solution. So I'm going to turn it over to Josh, who's going to walk us through the presentation after introducing himself. And we definitely, once again, appreciate your participation and joining us today.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate the introduction. Thank you, Victoria, as well. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Josh Jaworski, and I am the supervisor of the Notary Works closing department here. My group oversees hundreds of RON transactions a month. So I wanted to get together with everybody today and kind of let you know about what we're seeing and some of the current trends, and also see how you guys can plan to succeed if you look forward to using this platform as well. So I'll go ahead and get started here. So what's on the agenda today? We already went through our introductions. We're going to have a couple of poll questions to start off. We're going to go over and cover some of our signing solutions that we cover at the Accurate Group, in addition to the RON solution. We're going to go over what that RON solution looks like right now and how we're utilizing it, and how you as lenders can also best utilize this to start. I know it's something new to jump in at the beginning, but the application of it is just fantastic with today's digital world. And then we will conclude with some Q&As. So to start here, we'll go ahead and ask 2 poll questions. So our first question is, what best describes your current use of the RON product in home equity lending? Are you using it not at all, using it for a little bit, maybe exceptions, maybe half or greater? And then where do you see yourself or your use of RON in the home equity lending over the next several years? So we'll give you some time to answer those questions here. It seems like the early majority so far is not using RON at all. So that's good. Good you showed up today.
All right, Josh, you want to move on to the second poll question?
Yep. So let's see here. There's question 2. So where do you see your use of RON in the home equity lending over the next 2 years? So it should be available to answer for you now. All right, so we got our answers in there too. So it looks like you're looking for using it for exceptions and hybrids, and definitely more of use in your current transactions. So that's a positive outlook. And again, as I said, glad you guys came today. So we're going to give you a great overview of the product. So we'll go ahead and move along here. So here at the Accurate Group, we offer a total signing solution for our current clients. Of course, what we're going to cover today is mostly the RON products, but also we offer a hybrid solution, which is a partial electronic signing with a wet signing as well. Some of you may already be utilizing this today. One of the newer aspects of that, which we just started doing with the current client as well, is the IPEN, or the in-person electronic notarization. So I'll be going in on that as well a little bit. And of course, the traditional mobile closing. So our traditional mobile notary closing network, we currently here at the Accurate Group have over 57,000 National Notary Association approved notaries nationwide. And we also cover attorney states. We can meet the customers anywhere at any time. And that's the great value of our mobile network. However, with the current climate, how can we improve your customer's experience? Ever since 2020, the world's greatly changed. And also we see the mortgage industry moving more towards a digital landscape. So how do we best provide a greater experience for your customer? And part of that is the hybrid solution, which has seen more popularity and grown tremendously as well, along with the RON. Your customer can e-sign a portion of the documents, basically non-critical documents that a notary would notarize prior to the signing, or with the notary there. But they prefer the notary to be there as well. And then that notary will bring the remaining wet signed documents to the signing. This has definitely improved the speed of a signing, but it doesn't really take away the fact of the social distancing, because the notary still got to show up in front of your customer. Even in addition to the new IPEN solution, all the documents are e-signed. There are no wet signed documents. But however, the notary is bringing their own laptop or tablet to e-sign and e-notarize with the consumer. So this is a new solution. It is trending more towards the completely electronic signing. However, as I mentioned, it's still not getting rid of that social distancing and convenience aspect. So remote online notarization, our third signing solution. The customer appears in a two-way audio video medium with the notary. There is no physical contact. Your customer is able to do this at anywhere at any time with the mobile notary. Our mobile notary does have additional training and is commissioned to complete the remote online notarization. Our provider that we currently use also has additional training for the notaries. So they are aware of all the different factors that can come in. Maybe the signer doesn't have an internet connection. They know how to test that beforehand, and they know how to walk the customer through the closing in this different digital world. Of course, the demand for this method of closing skyrocketed with the pandemic. As I'll show later, the laws have definitely changed tremendously in the last 2 years. It's been a great thing to see. So today, I really wanted to cover the different aspects of the e-closing digital world. The two biggest ones, of course, trending is RON and hybrid. So while the hybrid signings are that step towards the digital endgame, the hybrid still requires the meeting between the borrower and the notary.
As Josh moves through the slides, and he's going to go into a little more detail on both the hybrid and the RON solutions. We can move very quickly through that overview that really there's, three types of signings out there that all encompass this overall signing solution. There's the mobile signings, which is very similar to what many of you are used to. You're having a notary either in a branch today performing that signing, or you're sending out a mobile notary, which is a service we provide that has that 24/7 access that could go meet a consumer anywhere at their business, out of country, when they're out of state, et cetera. What we've seen developing is those last two solutions, they've really taken up speed ever since COVID, and that social distancing aspect really kicked in. And that's really first Ron, as more states adopted it. We have a truly remote online signing event where the borrower and the notary are completely separated. It's through a video conference, and we'll go into detail there. And then those hybrids have really started to pick up speed to take consideration those additional services. Combined, they offer a great solution for both your consumers and your members, for those of you that are credit unions. And it offers something that's both very convenient, safe, and economical for your borrowers and your consumers. And best implemented is a total package. There really isn't one service within there that works for every one of your consumers. As you know, you're going to have different consumers that love your online banking and they want a completely digital experience. And then you have those that definitely want to have a person in front of them they can ask questions with. They feel very comfortable with that one-on-one contact. So what Accurate Group does, and we're going to go into details about the different types, we definitely recommend that you implement as part of an overall signing solution, which I did see was the answer for most of you on the poll questions, which is great. So you're already kind of thinking along that line. So as we get to the question and answer session at the back end, you may have some questions along those lines. And I will tell you, we've had the opportunity to implement many of these processes with several members of the CBA. So you also have many of your peers that are using services today. So those will be great questions near the end. Josh?
Perfect. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that. Yeah, so as I mentioned, and as Steve mentioned here, we do offer all three of the signing solutions. With that, the Ron and the hybrid are the leaders of the e-signing side. We do have some signers that, want to have that social distancing as opposed to having the notary in front of them. What can we do to better accommodate those borrowers? And even with that iPen solution, it's still electronically signed, but it is in front of a notary and does not solve that concern. So current Ron applications and what we are using that here for at the Accurate Group and how you can better implement it for yourselves. Currently, we are using it for a lot of different things. Home equity lines of credit, business loans, unsecured loans, any sort of maybe notary error from a normal wet signing. We can set up a Ron notary to contact your borrower and get that done, so they don't have to worry about a notary coming back out, maybe another stranger or whatnot. They can just get it done whenever they want. It's most convenient for them. Auto, boat, RV loans, and bank audit certifications. So really, we have a wide array of things we're using the current Ron product for. And again, it's all tailored toward the convenience and satisfaction of your customer and what they want to see at the end. So why would you as a lender want to go towards this digital closing, not just only for your consumer, but for yourself? You want to make sure it's an efficient closing method. So for us, what we've seen is it's been a greater timeline of the closing events. So essentially now all your documents are already electronic anyway, so there's no really interface of changing it to a PDF. So you're going to create your documents as you normally do. You're going to make them available to us for the signing. We're going to get that to the notary. Our mobile notary is going to tag those documents for electronically, signing. So our biggest, plus out of this entire thing is we see a massive reduction of errors with our notaries for these, because our notaries are tagging exactly what needs to be signed and dated, and your consumer must complete all those before the signing is done. So there's nothing that's missed. There's nothing that's extra signed. It's a very clean process, and not a lot of information is missed on that. In addition, that after the signing, the documents are available for you same day. You don't have to wait for them to come in the mail from UPS or FedEx, or the possibility they get lost right now with the holidays. But however, within an hour of the signing, those documents are available for you. So if you have no rescission period on that loan, you can fund that same day. So that's one of the great things that's a plus on this as well. And then, as I said, at the end of the day, you gain that speed and you gain that accuracy. And that accuracy has been the biggest thing right now. in the reduction of notary errors. So how do you go to moving your traditional signings or even hybrid to the RON process? So what we've seen and the best practice that most of our clients have done is they've picked a targeted group of loans, maybe some business loans or unsecured loans that they wanted to test this process out on. And really, at the end of the day, it's become a great tool for them, and that's when they moved along the home equity side. They identify their suppliers with their existing RON and traditional notary solutions. So they identified how we could help them there. Focused on the e-recording jurisdictions, and I'm going to get more into that as well. That seems to be one of the biggest drawbacks for the RON product is the e-recording jurisdictions. And once I get into the regulatory outlook for that, I'll go over that as well. We also see that the loan officers get involved with this process as well, because they need to be aware of the landscape and also how the process works. So we work with our lenders and help kind of teach them how the process works and how it's a little different than a traditional signing as well.
I would say before Josh even moves on, you talk about best practice for implementation. I would say it works differently for different institutions. Some institutions, they want to dip their toe in the water a little bit. They want to get a subset of transactions, maybe when a specific borrower requests it because they have a hard time scheduling or they're not close to a branch or physical location. Or we've even seen some implement this more on the corrective side. So they've already gone through the full wet signing, but a document needs to be re-executed or re-signed because of a change to that term. Instead of having that consumer come back to your branch to re-execute again or sending someone back out to their home, we've seen where they've utilized this as a first step to kind of get used to the practice and becomes comfortable. And as Josh mentioned before, we then see that adoption definitely speeding up and accelerating. As they see and get feedback from their consumers, they're able to view a video recording of the experience. So they have quality control that they normally don't have in a signing where there's no online video and different things along those lines. Being able to actually increase and improve their utilization and the amount of times they're using it. One thing Josh didn't mention as a benefit that definitely affects many of our customers is document control. On these documents, as Josh mentioned, within an hour, you have the signed document package in electronic format that it can be in your post-close group. It can be back at your branch. You can distribute where you need to distribute it. You don't have to worry about documents getting lost in inner office or FedEx being held up because of the holiday season, things along those lines. So there's definitely some document control components too that are also very beneficial outside of the signing service. Josh?
Absolutely. Thanks, Steve. All right. So as I mentioned, a part of the concern that we see with the RON is the acceptance of the e-recording or e-signatures. So really with the pandemic starting early 2020, and as Steve mentioned before, back in the day, it was only Virginia that really started this trend. And as of right now, there are 40 states that have passed remote online notarization laws. And within the last year and a half, that has increased from, I believe it was 16 of April 2020. So this has really moved along quite a bit. And it's really glad to see. With that COVID response, we did see some different signing types that actually were created off this. Some of you may be familiar with the remote ink notarization or RIN, which was where the borrower and the notary would get on a video call such as this. And the signers would sign their wet signed documents, and then they would overnight mail it to the notary to then notarize the next day. So we were executing these as well while the emergency orders were active. There are still some emergency orders active. One state I wanted to note, for example, is North Carolina right now. Still does have RON until the end of the year. So they still have that temporary law, but they unfortunately haven't passed a RON law as of yet. And then that demand for the RON and RIN exploded with all the closures last year, of course, especially the RIN product. That was especially for being a new closing type. That was something that was in demand as well, in addition to the RON. But as we see the emergency orders go away, a lot of those RIN signings have subsided. So what's our regulatory outlook for nationwide, and how do we see the future of this going? So as of right now, we do have several states that don't have permanent RON laws, but we definitely see the trend going the other way. Some of these states even had emergency orders during COVID that allowed the RON, but they ended up not either passing a law or it got stuck in their state houses. So hopefully we see this trend flip for these last couple of states. Or as well, we had states that passed law and they didn't implement them. So Vermont's a big example of that. That state passed RON actually a couple of years ago, but unfortunately it is not active until their Secretary of State implements laws. So that's kind of an odd one there as well. But for nationwide, there is a hope for a Senate bill. It is called the Secure Notarization Act of 2021. It is the second time this bill has been introduced. It was introduced in the past as well. And this would authorize the use of remote online notarizations and electronic notarizations at the federal and state level. Unfortunately, the bill was stuck again in progress and has not moved since June. So it's kind of the same timeline we saw before, but this one had more sponsors on the bills and also backing from different publications. So hopefully we see this move along, and this would be a great progress for us in states where we see the permanent RON law not get passed, especially in higher volume states. So hopefully we see that change here very soon. So what is limiting adoption in these states? And what do we see as a drawback for that? So, and also for lenders as well. We see the electronic signing challenge, traditional workflow. You've had the traditional mobile notary come into your bank or go to your customer at home. So it's just an interruption to that normal cycle. And a lot of people just like doing it the traditional way as opposed to the electronic signing and PDF workflows. Recording jurisdictions that do not allow e-recording still do exist. Unfortunately, even in some of the RON accepted states, you do see one or two counties that do not e-record and will not take an e-signature. So that is definitely a strange phenomenon, and usually we can get it recorded, but you still see that randomly in some sparse counties. There are some myths about privacy and security concerns, basically saying these closings are not secure. And I would actually argue tremendously the other direction on this. Before a signer can even get to their documents in electronic signing, they have their ID checked through a system, and then they have to pass 5 knowledge-based questions based on their credit history. So that's way more than a notary does at a mobile signing. And in my opinion, that's way more secure and prevents a lot of fraud. And then also most of the states that are left that don't have a RON law are attorney states. And for that reason, the attorneys really don't want to see their role diminished in the signing process. So we see that as kind of a big limitation in those attorney states.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to what Josh just mentioned about limited adoption, especially as it's the myths about privacy and security concerns. I had the privilege to participate in an MBA conference about 1.5 years ago, where we talked about CBA or about RON notarizations, and I was a panelist and a presenter on that particular session. And one thing that definitely came up, which was very interesting too, is as it relates to fraud in a RON remote online notarization process, intuitively, an individual who's actively pursuing fraud and intends to perform a fraudulent transaction does not want to be on video. They don't want it recorded that they actively perform fraud. So the video itself also subverts or reduces that potential fraud, because a fraudster doesn't want to be recorded doing that, because it makes it very, very easy to prosecute in that situation. So there's also that side benefit. By having an active video recording, you reduce fraud, because you're in essence creating a potential case against it in a fraudulent situation.
Yep, absolutely, Steve. And we had an example of that this year, actually, where they tried claiming they didn't actually do the signing, and it was certainly them on camera, and we have an audit log that goes with it too. So we were able to back that up and help our client with that situation. It was definitely an odd one. So, all right, perfect. So I'm going to move on next to a couple of screenshots from a video, and we'll have a link at the end of this as well. For our current provider that we use at the Accurate Group for RON technology, which is Notary Cam. So what you're seeing here is a screenshot of our email from our test mobile notary here for the RON product. So this is going to be a welcome email that your client would receive if they would choose to do this closing solution. So you see some steps here about completing their ID verification. The customer does have the opportunity, to do this before the signing to help expedite it as well, and send it through the verified system. And then they would also have a link down there at the bottom where they would go into the session with the notary. Now, on that sign-in page, the signer does have the ability to create their own account. I would highly recommend this just for the fact that they have access to their signed docs after the signing. They do not need to create an account. It'll still two-factor identify them if they do not want to go through here. The notary will have the number for the security there. But I would highly recommend them to create an account so they have access to all the signing details afterwards. So here's what our RON session would look like for Notary Cam with our notary. As you can see up top, both the notary and the consumer are on a two-way audio video platform, and they are communicating with each other right there. The customer does not have the option to move or touch anything right now of the documents. They cannot do anything to the documents until they pass the ID check and the KBA verification. And I will click on that next. I do have that here. So the customer will be asked first if they consent to the e-signing, which of course they would need to opt into. And they also can get a copy of those terms there as well before they accept. Once they accept, they will be then taken to two different places. The first will be the ID for the driver's license. Of course, if they already did that beforehand, they would not need to go through this step, and the notary would already see this. The notary journal helps keep track of this as well. So if it were to come back that maybe the ID was fraudulent or there was an issue with it, the notary would get to see that on their journal. In addition, on the right-hand side there, of course, it's blanked out, but there's going to be 5 questions to identify their identity. This has been a huge security step for our customers. And again, preventing those fraudulent cases. There are 2 limitations to it that I do want to identify that we've seen come up. If a customer doesn't have a credit history, and the 2 situations that we've seen are someone that is underage or from overseas, they will not have these questions generate. So at this time, that is a minor limitation, and we only see this affect a minuscule amount of closings that we've done. Once they pass those 5 questions, of course, they will be prompted to then go to the signing room with the notary. Once they get there, the notary can walk them through the documents as if they were right in front of them. They can also be directed to go straight to the tags up top. You can see it says previous or next tag. So the signer can go through and complete those with the notary. The notary, again, has already tagged these documents for signing. So it'll direct the signer exactly where to go. They're not going to be wandering around the pages looking for where to sign. It also has a count up top as well, so they can see how many more they have remaining and how many more they have left there. And as I mentioned, here is the link for the video here. So after this signing or after this demo here, we'll send this out to everybody so you have a chance to look at our little demo video from Notary Cam, so you can see exactly how that signing process works. That's where my screenshots came from as well. And with that, Steve, if you have nothing else to add here, I'll open it up for questions. But if you have anything to add, I'll let you go.
I will definitely add a few things. So the first thing is Josh took you through some of the screen grabs from the process itself. And part of the reason we did that is the demo itself, the video that we like to share that he's provided access to, doesn't necessarily translate really well to a live session because the sound gets a little bit out of whack. But we definitely would like you to look at that video. We're also willing to provide demos, either utilizing a pre-planned demo session, or in some cases, we've had clients that wanted to go through the signing with their own KBA questions to see how they could see how the process worked and really understand what that consumer's experience is. So we're definitely open to both, and we'd love to show anybody a deep dive personal one-on-one session so you can actually see how the technology works. how it interacts and how the notary engages your consumer. One thing we didn't necessarily mention, but I like to touch on here, is when you're talking about notarizations today and signing your documents, obviously, you're either utilizing a branch type methodology where you have notaries within your branches that are performing those sessions and actually doing the signings themselves. You may be using a mobile notary where you have NNA or certified notaries, of which we utilize across the country, that are trained in documents, and they're moving kind of, from borrower to borrower at the borrower's convenience. What Ron does beyond those is it allows you to have a large subset of your consumers with a very convenient signing experience performed by a smaller subset of very highly trained notaries. As we mentioned before, you see the video, which not only helps in fraudulent circumstances, but it also helps so you understand that your borrower and your consumer or your member is getting a great experience. And you can see and train those notaries to perform a better signing environment, which is not always the case if you're using branch employees or if you're using mobile notaries. Then it becomes more of a feedback loop. Did you get a survey back, or the results of the survey? Do you see trends within your survey? The benefit of Ron is you can see it all. You can audit it yourself if you want to. You can see what the experience is, and allows us to take that smaller pool of notaries and train them up really well so that they're giving an exceptional service each time they have consumers on the line. So it's definitely an overall experience that's much more controlled, and it's audible, which is really great. You can audit it well. All right, Josh, I'll turn over to you if we want to open up the floor for some questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve.
As a reminder, to ask a question, type it in the Q&A box on the bottom of your screen. And we have first question. What is the biggest hurdle for the implementation of Ron for first mortgage?
Yeah, so right now what we see for the first mortgage side is getting underwriter approval right now can be a little tough for the first side. The acceptance of the e-note, which I didn't really touch on for home equity. So this is a good reminder that on the home equity side, federal home loans actually do accept e-notes now. So that is across the board on their end. So all 11 of them, I believe there are branches of the FHL do accept the e-notes now. And then, of course, I did touch on this. The e-recording of documents or deeds is also an issue for that first mortgage side. So it's a little mixed bag of everything for that side of it. So that's currently what we're seeing are the biggest hurdles for that on first mortgage.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, really, considering this is a CBA call as well. So, with the first mortgage, obviously there's tie-in, you want some uniformity amongst, your consumers, et cetera. So we are seeing, the ACRA group does not only home equity, but we do first mortgage across the country as well. We've seen that the underwriters in particular, which were a little bit of a stopping point initially for first mortgage, have now definitely bought in as you've got to 40 states now. So we're seeing an adoption on full policies definitely increasing at a dramatic rate. 2 years ago, it was home equity, went crazy, and it's accelerated out of the gate when COVID hit. And the underwriters have all been on board, but because of risk components with electronic, they were very, very slow to adopt. But we definitely see a much more accelerated process now. We're seeing quite a few of our clients that we work with, both on the first mortgage and the home equity side, doing sort of a joint effort to get these transactions notarized. And our title and settlement teams are seeing it quite a bit now, where consumers are requesting it, which is great. Thanks for the question.
Yes, thank you.
We have another question. For you current Ron transactions, how do you verify if a county will record an e-signed document?
Yeah, so as I touched on that, some counties, even in Ron states or full states as a whole, that don't accept Ron transactions. So our team will call a county to verify the recording status of that county. So we will call to make sure before you were to place an order with us, hypothetically, do you guys accept e-signatures? Will you guys take an e-recorded document? So we will internally track this as well after we call them, and we keep track of this information from all 50 states so far. We've been asked many times for different places. So I do want to touch on this as well now that I'm thinking of reaching out and calling these as well. I didn't mention this earlier. A good byproduct of the Ron transaction is that your signer can also be out of country. So if they were to be, their properties in, let's say, Ohio, and they're currently on vacation in, Canada, Mexico. If they still want to do this loan, they can do a RON, and they can still get it done. So I wanted to touch on that as we talked about verifying a county. So that was a little off the question there, but I hope that answered the rest of the question.
I think that's a very, very good point, Josh. And, obviously, even for members of the military, it's a good service to have. If you have one spouse that's out of the country on a tour and the other spouse potentially is on site, or if they don't have a spouse, that does give them the benefit of not having to wait till they cycle back into the country and they can still close their loan transaction.
Yep. Awesome.
Thank you. And I think that those all the questions we have.
All right. Well, we definitely appreciate everybody's time, and our contact information is on the left screen. Frank Guinera, unfortunately, was not able to join us today because he's doing his duty and ended up on a jury today. So he was called to serve. But we're there and available if you have any questions directly, or if you'd like to see a demo, or just have a one-off question, you're looking for a little expertise. Josh, myself, or Frank Guinera are definitely there, and we'd be more than happy to answer your questions or provide additional demos and services for you. So thanks for your time and have a great day.
Thank you. And sorry, Josh, would you like to say?
Hi, Victoria. I'm sorry.
And with that, we must conclude today's program. And this session has been recorded and will be available within 3 to 5 business days. On behalf of the Consumer Bankers Association, thank you to our speakers and, of course, all of today's participants. Have a good afternoon. You may now disconnect.
All right.